to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
The Redhill Brothers, Part 7. Deceit and Descent. Hey folks, it's your lovable buddy Zach this time. Didn't think I was going to get the chance to write this. Things have been gotten a bit intense around here lately. I guess I'll start you off easy with a quick recap of what I've been up to this past month. First things first, gnomes. I was right. Honestly, a bit bummed I haven't had more time to rub that one in Maddie's face. I spent some more time in Bob's study reading about the little buggers. Turns out they're not only raging alcoholics, but genius inventors and craftsmen. I solicited the Derwain with 4 handles of wild turkey and one of the biggest dubs I've rolled in my life, and waited by the shed where I had first encountered them. It didn't take long before I heard shuffling from the overgrown grass. Anios, the duende who strung Matt up, emerged with a wide grin. A bit early with your offering, but I'll take it all the same. Actually, I was hoping we could work something out. See, my brother Matt was recently attacked by a were-kitty, and his arm was, removed. Before we got the chance to save it, a crazy hobo in his undies swallowed it whole. I heard you folk were pretty amazing when it comes to crafting, and I was thinking maybe you could whip something up to make him a bit more handy. After a long silence, the gnome burst out into a fit of laughter. His face grew a bright shade of red, and he fell to one knee, struggling for breath. "Hi, lad. Nothing like a good arm pun to start off your day on the right foot," he yelled out, grabbing the neck of a bottle and twisting the cap off with his thumb. "I like you, laddie. Me and the boys will see what we can do." He stashed the other 3 bottles into a burlap sack slung over his shoulder, then put the joint to his lips. With a snap of his fingers, the end of it lit up, and he inhaled deeply. A large mushroom cloud of smoke erupted from his mouth, enshrouding his small frame entirely. By the time it had cleared, he was gone. Uncle Bob hadn't been back since before the whole him thing either. No matter how much I smoked, he never appeared. I thought rifling through some of his personal effects might be enough to stir his presence, but all it got me was a compromising image of Melinda that I'll never unsee. Ugh. With Serena spending most of her free time with Matt at the hospital, I've been at the house mostly to myself, save the occasional visit from Melvin and Sheena. Just me and Captain Bubbles holding down the fort, with an odd spirit here or there. With all the spare time on my hands, I tried contacting the mayor. He'd also been missing since Matt's arm got devoured by that weirdo in the tights. I was very much looking forward to picking Matt up from the hospital. He was finally getting released. I jumped in the old truck and drove out to get him. I got to the rundown building around noon. The place looked like it had been built around the time the Mayflower landed. A large lobby branched into 2 hallways. The man at the desk was an enthusiastic 20-something-year-old who had developed a strong crush on me since I began visiting Matt. "Hey, handsome," he called out to me. Yeah, hey, Mikal, how's it going?" "Oh, much better now that you're here." Right. Anywho, just here to pick up Maddie, so, have a good one, bud." "Oh, well, that's a shame. I guess I won't be seeing you anytime soon, then. In that case here, if you decide to get a little adventurous," he said smoothly with a wink as he slipped a piece of paper into my hand. I nervously chuckled and turned down the hall to where Matt was, stuffing the parchment in my pocket. It was still strange seeing Maddie missing a limb. All the crazy things we've gotten into since moving here, and somehow we always manage to come away unscathed. Maddie, man, it's good to see you up and about. Not too bad for a guy who can't scratch his right ass cheek anymore. He stood by the side of his bed, struggling to fold some of his clothes into a suitcase, where I caught a flash of silver. A much shinier than necessary silver tuxedo lay neatly folded inside. Wow, custom threads even. Ain't you something? He gave him a slight pat on the back. The sleeve of his flannel shirt was hemmed shut where his arm abruptly ended. Yeah, they're not too bad, a little lighter than I like, but I can't beat the price. Serena dropped them off about an hour ago, then rushed back out. Didn't say much about where she was going, just said she'd meet up with us later. She got you one too. Yay for presents, I shouted like a kid on Christmas. I rushed over to the box sitting beside Matt's suitcase. I opened it up to find a dark green tux that sparkled equally accessibly. Well, she nailed the color, that's for sure. I laughed as I pulled it out. What are they for? I think there's some kind of town function coming up in the community center. Some fancy dancing and music. Serena knows more about it than I do. Hey, Matt, I didn't want to worry you with nothing while you were here recovering, but, Uncle Bob hasn't been around since you got there. Matt began fumbling around with the last of his old clothes. You mean you haven't seen him at all? That's really strange. Think it has something to do with the nut job who ate my arm? Don't know, but with the mayor MIA and Bob missing, there's only one person left I can think of that might know what the hell's going on. I gotta go talk to Eileen. Maybe those Hocus Pocus girls could help us out. Matt nodded in agreement. We made our way down to the old truck and I went up the hill to Grandma's. You sure you don't want to come? Matt asked. Nah, I got this. I have my way with him anyway, I said, shooting him a wink. You just stay here and hold down the fort. Listen to the radio. Have a messed up dream, whatever it is you do to figure shit out. I'll call you if I have any trouble. Okay, well, I'll smoke a bowl and see if I can find Bob. Be careful, Zach. Things are starting to feel kind of drastic lately. I placed a joint between my lips, and with a nod, I was off. I had to park a bit further than usual. Almost seemed like the trees and the brush had grown thicker, despite it being late October. I made my trek towards the water until I entered into the Coven's clearing. Eileen, I called out. It's me, Zach. I have a question for you. I was hoping you could help me out. From the edge of the clearing, Eileen emerged, fully cloaked in a white robe. Of course, my boy. What can I do for you? It's so good to see you again. Soft chanting could be heard from beyond the trees as she approached. Well, here's the thing. Some crazy hobo showed up and swallowed Maddie's arm like a messed up anaconda and lit up like fireworks before vanishing. Now I think he's done something to Uncle Bob. It's been weeks since we've seen him. We're starting to get worried. Oh, my dear boy, you have every right to be worried. Bob's been here with us. I perked up at hearing this. What do you mean he's been here? How was he able to leave the property? The chanting began to grow louder. Several figures could be seen standing just beyond the tree line. With this, Eileen produced a small lavender sphere. Inside the sphere was a rapid swirl of silvery light. My sisters and I simply put Bob in the phylactery and brought him back, for safekeeping, of course. Safekeeping? I muttered. Come on, Eileen, what are you playing here? I wanted to take a step forward, but my legs were stuck in place. The chanting was loud now. All around the clearing, Eileen's coven stood repeating their strange incantation over and over. What the hell? I can't move. Maybe I should have just called. You see, dear, I hate to have it end this way. I'll tell you a little story. Maybe it will make it easier to accept your fate. It started many, many years ago, before this land had a name. There was a great and powerful evil that roamed free, unopposed. It sought only one thing, to invite the darkness into this world, to shut out the light once and for all. There were two clans at that time, the Red Suns, that were native to this region, and the Hillards, who had migrated from the New World. Both families had spent generations trying to fight back this dark force. After many years of barely surviving their encounters with the one you referred to as a crazy hobo, they figured out a way to seal off his powers. Every great act requires sacrifice. This was no small feat. To lock his powers away, they had to sacrifice their own lives in a blood magic ritual. I stood there speechless. Over time, he has attempted to regain his power, but there has always been one thing he needed: the blood of a Red Sun. This is only the second time he's had the chance. The first was about 20 years ago, when your parents came back to town. I knew the only chance he had at reviving was to ingest the blood of your parents, and I could not allow that to happen. I felt my stomach drop, and the world began to spin around me. Wait, don't tell me. Are you saying the crash? That was you? A smile slowly formed on Eileen's worn face. Trust me, Zach, it brought no pleasure to me, but it had to be done to keep the beast's power sealed away. Not only is he a deadly foe, but if he brings back Talbia, it will be the end of everything good that has ever existed. It has to be done again tonight. I knew without Bob you'd be forced to come here, and there's no better place to set this trap than here, with my sisters, where we're at full strength. I fought my hardest in order to move, but it was useless. It was like my feet were stuck in concrete. The chanting had become all-consuming. The only thing capable of penetrating the words was Eileen's voice. Everything began to grow dim. Just like my vision was about to go, I saw something shoot overhead from behind me and fly off into the distance. My sight began to return, and the chanting began to fade. Another shadow was flung overhead. I turned my head back to see a giant beast lifting one of the witches up and tossing her away like a rag doll. It dropped to all fours and charged Eileen. One, his gnarled horns found itself wedged into her rib cage. As the creature lifted its head, Eileen went with it, and the beast began to shake and thrash about. Eileen's last words were drowned out by the blood gurgling out of her mouth. After a moment, her body slumped over, still stuck into the monster's horn. The lavender phylactery dropped from her hand and rolled towards my feet. The creature turned and roared out towards me. "Run now, you idiot!" I was in a bit of a shock. Everything had happened so quickly. "Holy shit, it's the mayor! Where have you been?" The mayor shook his head violently and flung the corpse away. "I said run!" The mayor howled as he turned and made his way back from whence he came. "But why? Pretty sure the problem's been dealt with." No sooner had I uttered the words than the bodies of the witches began to twitch. The sound of cracking bones and squelching filled the air. "Okay, yeah, maybe we run." I turned and made after the mayor, thinking how glad I was that I made Maddie stay home. This wasn't his cup of tea, and he certainly didn't need another reason to be grumpy. About 30 yards from the clearing sat an old Volkswagen with the back door open. I jumped into the back and slammed the door shut, and was concerned since I lost sight of Barghast. I looked at the driver's seat only to find the lifeless puppet sitting there. A glowing wisp of smoke entered the car and into the wooden puppet. Suddenly the puppet jumped to life and slammed the pedal to the floorboard. The van made its way through the woods and finally onto the road. I cleared my throat. Okay, this is a bit much. What the hell just happened here? The puppet cocked its head to the side and spoke. Well, seems pretty straightforward. Those witches killed your parents to keep him sealed away, and they were about to do the same to you. Whole lot of good it would have done now, though. He's already got the blood he's needed. Yeah, he keeps going for Maddie, though. I mean, he got me once with his dirty little nails, but it didn't seem to make a difference. What's up with that? That is because your blood is more of the Hilliard side, Zachary. Him requires the blood of a red son. What do you mean we're brothers? True, but the families in alliance made an arranged marriage, so there would always be a champion force that fought for the Golden One. Those champions became the Redhills. Over the generations, the blood thinned out until a new heir is born out of necessity, which would be your brother. This is the best chance the evil in these mountains have to take back control. Unsure how to process this, I decided to compartmentalize and tell Barghast about my research. I've been looking into all that lore I can find on him, and I figured out where the MacGuffin is. There's a large cavern under the town. Used to be an old mine until too many people went missing, and they closed the place down about 80 years ago. The innermost chamber house, the blade, according to legends. It was the only weapon on earth that can hurt that sick son of a bitch. Yes, the Star Saber. Said to have fallen from the heavens themselves many years ago, but it was lost in the ages. I know where this mine is, but you will have to find your own way. There hasn't been an honest map of that place since it was operational, and even that is subject to scrutiny. Best to be on your guard, boy. Noted. Hey, Mayor, have you, seen Zarina lately? Of course I have. She does work for me, after all. She's waiting for you at the town hall. I suspect your brother won't be joining us. Nah, the guy needs a break. Plus, he's better at finding information from a premonition point of view. Something will find him when he wants to. I just hope he's up to dealing with it. The rest of the ride was pretty quiet, and I was still reeling from the news of our parents. It hadn't been an accident. Eileen had been responsible the whole time. Just how deep did the thing go? We pulled up to the office, and the puppet turned towards me. All right, Zachary, this is your stop. Good luck out there, and don't leave without the sword. Right, the sword, I muttered as we stepped onto the sidewalk. Serena ran over and wrapped her arms around me. I'm so glad you made it. I was so worried when we found out you'd gone to the witches. I'm fine. Luckily the mayor was there to break the spell, but for right now we gotta get going to the mine. You know the way? I said, jumping into the passenger side of her car. Kind of, she said, jumping in. It's something of a legend all the kids tell. I know it's on the north side of the mountain, but it'll take a bit to find. What do the kids say about the place? It's said to be full of miners who lost their lives. One of my friends, Samantha, swore up and down she went there to drink one time and saw a skeleton. Well, looks like we've got a bone to pick with them, I said, slipping on a pair of sunglasses. Serena giggled, and we were on our way. The drive was a good distance, as it was on the other side of the Avon Mountain. I filled her in on what had been going on, and try as I might, the damn placatory would not open. I guess Uncle Bob would have to wait as well. I've got to say, I'm glad Sabrina was on board, as I realized in my haste I didn't think to bring a weapon. Oh well, I'd have one soon enough. After about 20 minutes, she pulled off a rough-looking road. It was obvious it hadn't been used in years, as what remained of a fence along the sides were grown over and rotting. The vegetation didn't clear up any as we made our way in, and we ended up having to stop when a thick growth of saplings blocked off what could barely be considered an entrance up ahead. We got out, and Serena made sure to load her spare clip up to the max. Hate to say it, but that's not going to be able to help us this time. She looked up in confusion, and I filled in the blank for her. It could cause the tunnel to collapse. I didn't even think of that. We can't just go in there empty-handed, though. I looked around and walked over to a fallen tree. After ripping off a sturdy-sized branch, I tested the weight. Guess this'll have to do. You ready? She gave a nod, and off we went. The entrance was tight, though. I'd never admit it to Matt. Tight squeezes just happened to be one of my fears. I managed to put up a good front for Serena, and soon enough the tunnel opened up to a large enough shaft that I could walk normally. Small miracles. We continued on as the grade began to decline. As the passage darkened, we both turned on our flashlights, and soon what was clearly a classic design of a basic mine began to turn to hard stone. As we made our way through, cobwebs, both old and new, were everywhere. Lumped-up creatures of all sizes made their graves in the silk, and having played video games a good chunk of my life, I was half tempted to rummage through them. I didn't, and wouldn't, of course, as spiders were my other fear. The walls and ceilings were rapidly getting wider, and soon we couldn't even see them anymore. The stone passage ahead of us was basically a 6-foot balance beam that dropped off on either side, and we couldn't see the bottom. The path would zig wildly this way, then zag the other, with no real order to it. Was this natural? I could only guess what Serena was thinking, as neither of us could find it in ourselves to disturb the deafening quiet of the landscape before us. A walk through a tomb would be more lively than this place. Eventually, the path began to widen again, and the walls closed back in. They continued to squeeze until I realized I was stuck. I began breathing heavily. I could feel my chest being crushed. I couldn't breathe. Serena, help! I can't move. She was still behind me and took hold of my arm. Try as she might, she wasn't getting me back out. Oh my God, I'm gonna die. I don't want to die like this. Calm down, Zach. You're not gonna die. Just breathe in, nice and slow, and pull yourself back out, okay? I tried to concentrate on her words, but it was hard. My vision was beginning to swim as I gasped for air, and I couldn't stop myself from shaking. Her attempts at comforting me was falling on deaf ears, but as I frantically looked around for anything that could help, I saw something even worse. Up above me, the thin ceiling began to move and grow black. I had to take a good, hard look at exactly what I was seeing, and I made for a bunch of spindly legs, multiple sets of eyes shining back at me, and I let out a true scream of fear. Spiders were making their way towards us. Big spiders, the kind that could easily take a dog or a small child. Maybe I knew going back was impossible. Maybe I thought if I flapped my arms hard enough, I could fly. I really don't know how it happened. But somehow I found the strength to pop myself out of the other side. I remember Serena was still behind me, and I grabbed her and pulled her over with me. The other side wasn't very comforting, however, as it led to a dead end. Behind us, an army of giant spiders made their way through, quickly taking up any ground we had left. I swung my branch, and though I succeeded in smashing a couple, I doing very little to drive them back. They hissed like steam pipes, and their long dagger-like fangs dripped something awful. I was about to give up hope when I felt something touch my shoulder. I wheeled around, almost nailing Serena in the head. "Zach, your medallion!" she yelled, pointing to a picturesque cave-like drawing. It was a reverse hill with the sun falling into a valley, just like my medal. I threw my branch into the growing horde. A few screeches sounded off, and it quickly disappeared from view. Serena saw no other choice and began to fire her gun. I ripped the medallion out of my pocket and slammed it into the indentation. There was a rumble and stones began to fall. A door opened up into the granite ahead of us, and we ran inside. Behind us, the stones shook violently and clacked as they fell, cutting the room off from where we were. A puff of dust shot through, and all was calm again, aside from us coughing like we were ripping a G-bong. The dust cleared, and ahead of me, sitting upon an old altar of some kind, stood a sword. I pulled it from its ancient resting place, and despite being who knows how old, the long, thin blade showed brilliantly in the dim light. I was surprised by how weightless and delicate it felt, no heavier than my hand if it was empty. I felt it tingle in my grip, and it felt so good, better than any lady I've come to know. There was power there, and I wielded it with pride. I grabbed the sheath that sat next to it and placed it inside. After tying it to the belt loop of my jeans, we made our way onward to try and find our way out. The tunnels went on for miles, and I couldn't even be sure any would lead to the outside. There would snake around to dead ends, pools of water, or even just circle around to places they started. I checked my phone and was shocked to find it was already 3 o'clock in the morning. Serena leaned against the wall and slumped to the ground. "That's it. I can't go on anymore, Zach," she said as she panted. I was exhausted as well. I sat down on the cold, hard rock and let out a sigh. "We're gonna die down here. We're gonna get swallowed up by this damn mountain, and a spider's gonna eat us, and we're both gonna die!" I yelled. "Don't give up yet. We'll make it somehow," she said with a smile. "Let's just take a rest, try and get some sleep, and take another stab at it in a bit, all right? At least we haven't seen any more spiders." I was going to give her crap for bringing him up, but my brain stopped when I looked up at her. Down the path over her shoulder, I saw the silhouette of a tall, skinny figure. "Oh, shit, I think it's a frickin' skeleton," I whispered. I looked on her face, told me she thought I was joking, so I pulled her over and in front of me and shined the dying flashlight down the passage. It wasn't a great view, but Serena gasped as her eyes fell upon whatever it was. It turned. It seemed to notice us, and we heard the clack of hard feet against stone, making its way over to us. "Oh, shit, Zach, it's coming!" she yelled, moving behind me. Skeletons weren't exactly on my list of fears that I knew of, so I whipped my sword out, held it in front of me towards the abomination, and cocked my head to the side when I got a better look. That creature that came to us stopped about 10 feet from us and did a rigid version of a bow. "Greetings. I am Mephos 23597. It would appear you humans have been misplaced. May I be of assistance?" "It isn't a monster at all. It's a robot," I yelled, finishing her sentence. Believe it or not, out of me and Maddie, I've always been the bigger nerd. Robots and aliens have always been one of my biggest loves as a kid, and though I hadn't thought about them in a long-ass time, they clearly still were. "Correction. I am a mechanical being. However, I have organic components as well. You could consider me an android." All right, well, whatever you are, we are lost. Do you know how to get out of here? Asked Serena. Of course. Follow me. We walked on for a while, going ways I could have sworn we went a dozen times. I was thrilled to see more of Mepho's kind as we went through. Some were round and some were square. Mepho's was the only one I saw that was a shape like, human. I'd have come back here someday and study him. They didn't appear to have a spider problem on this side of the mountain, and my guess was that they were their own exterminators. How did you guys get down here? Serena asked. We have been here for a millennia, and also no time at all. We are between space and time, and nowhere at all. Well, that doesn't tell me much. So, if you're part alive, do you guys, have to eat? I asked. Once every 2 weeks, we ingest a paste made from the fungus that grows here. How do you guys make more of you? Do you have, a robot penis? Zach! Serena yelled, smacking me on the shoulder. We do not possess biological reproductive organs. We reproduce by a series of cellular fusion, almost equivalent to cloning. Would you stop asking him stupid questions? We don't want to make an enemy out of these people, she said. It is fine, female. There are no stupid questions. Knowledge is a horizon to strive for. The hours went by, and I was starting to think we'd never get out of here. I was exhausted, and Serena looked like she was about ready to fall over. Up ahead, light was shining through. We got excited and ran ahead of Mephos, only to find a strange city of sorts. What? This isn't the end? I yelled, dropping to my knees. Correct. This is Primus, the home of the Mephos. Game over, man. Game over, I yelled, wanting to cry. We still have another 20 miles to the exit. However, it appears you two are exhausted. I would recommend resting before heading on. Yeah, we can't go on any more, Mephos, said Serena. Come with me. There is a building that should suit your needs. We will get you some fungus paste to ingest as well, it said, and continued onward. We reached a small building a few moments later, and it was the size of a one-bedroom apartment. They didn't have pillows or blankets, but oddly enough, it was warm and cozy. The fungus paste was amazing. Serena made a face like she might throw up, so I guess she didn't like it. But you bet your ass I had thirds. Sleep came and went, and the only way I could tell it was the next day was from looking at my phone. It was around 9 o'clock in the morning, and we finally popped out of an old hole somewhere on the other side of the mountain. Amazingly, Grandma's house was in view, and I came to accept that there were no real coincidences. We were surprised to find the mayor waiting for us. He wanted to see how we made out after not hearing from us for almost 2 days. Maddie was nowhere to be seen. Poor guy must have been worried half to death. And on the holiday, no doubt. We got to work through and decided to throw him a big surprise for when he got back, as this was the other special times of the year that are hard on him. They're hard on me as well. But I think he feels responsible somehow. Wait until I tell him what really happened. About it for now. Dead parents, secret genealogy, and a badass Star Saber. Until next time, folks, and thanks for caring. So quoth this raven. It's a bit difficult to do Zach for the whole story, but I hope you enjoyed it. There's 9 parts, and we are on 7, so there's 2 more to do. I hope you enjoyed, and have a lovely day, my darlings. Thank you so kindly for stopping by my chateau, my darlings. It does mean so much to me. Please, if you have not subscribed, as many of you have not, please do so. Give me a like so I know what you would like to hear. And comment. I always love to read your comments. And special thanks to my Patreon and membership supporters. Ciao, darlings.